We Run With It, Ultra. Written by Tim Murphy. Narrated by Tim Murphy. Part 1. Character. Carlos. Hey, pass me another Modelo's, Carlos's father hollers out. It's Sunday, which means the usual family cookout. That isn't the reason his dad is drinking, though. It is an everyday occasion for him. Carlos rolls his eyes, steps to his cooler, and picks a cold one out. What's the matter? You don't like having fun with us? His dad asks in a sneering tone. You know I don't drink. Come on, just drop the subject, Carlos says back, with frustration. Sure didn't know I was raising such a wimp. Maybe someday you'll be fun, he ends with. Carlos strolls off, heads to his room to grab his running shoes. At this point in life, running is his only escape. So he laces his shoes up, puts on his headphones, and takes off towards the beach. Running is where he can sort through his problems in life, take time to reflect. He didn't always have this outlet, though. Up until a year ago, he was joining in on the Sunday charades. He chose to put off college, even though he had the grades to go. His family needed the money, so at 18 he took a landscaping job. He's been putting in walkways and patios for all the rich people who live on the beach. It wasn't a job he hated doing. Unfortunately, it just didn't pay enough, so he could get out of the house and get his own place. Hey, grab me another Modelo's. Played in his head as he came off the boulevard and onto the sand. He just laughed and shook his head. It wasn't that he hated his dad for being that way. He just wished his dad would put in a little more effort into working than he did drinking. Carlos's decision to stop drinking didn't stem from one traumatic event. He enjoyed working out and running so much that he didn't have time for it. The nasty hangovers, useless days spent laying in bed with a pounding headache, those days are past him. He has one thing on his mind now. About a month ago, he saw a flyer posted on the signboard where he gets his acai bowl after his long run. The sign read, $100,000 to first place in a 3-year sponsorship deal. 100-mile ultra marathon, hosted by WeRunWithIt Fitness. 100 miles. He had never run further than a marathon, so that seemed unfathomable to him. The idea of $100,000 in a sponsorship deal by a fitness company seemed appealing, though. The race is October 7th. That would leave a decent amount of time to train, seeing that it is only May. Almost 5 months of training. Who knows how far I could go, he thought to himself. He does run a fast marathon for someone who isn't a full-time runner. His personal best is 2 hours, 47 minutes. I could start hitting more miles every week and have a real shot at this, he daydreamed. As the transition from soft sand to the more compact wet sand begins, he starts thinking a lot about what the trail run will be like. Luckily for him, the ultra marathon is in his home state. Still an 8-hour drive as Lake Tahoe sits atop California. 100K would be enough money to put a down payment on my own place and start my own landscape company, he continued to dream. The crash of a nearby wave brought him back to reality. Who am I kidding? People like me don't get that lucky. The negative self-talk creeps in. He sighs, trying to shake off the inner demons. Keep going, keep training. Give it all you have these next few months. Character. Adley. That will be $23.99. Adley spouted out to her 10th customer of the day. Her sundress was light blue, the same color as her eyes, which seemed to have every guy around stopped dead in their tracks. Growing up in a small town in Ohio, she dreamed of a different life someday. Everything was so picture perfect from the outside. The family farm was in its 3rd generation. Adley was looking to be the driving force behind the next. She stayed behind while most of her friends went to the city to go to college. The farmer's porch, the dogs, the big family gatherings after church on Sunday. All she was missing was her own companion, but she didn't want that from this town. She wanted to escape. 2 years ago. On her 18th birthday, all her friends took her out to the city, a night to get away from the family farm. What she didn't know is that her friends got her a fake ID, so instead of turning 18, she was 21 for the evening. "Where did you get this?" Adley asked Rachel. "Don't worry about it. My older sister got them for us from the same person that did it for her when she was in college," Rachel replied with certainty. "Yeah, except we aren't even in college yet, Rach. We just graduated high school," Adley emphasized. "Even if we were in college, we'd still be underage, so just take this thing and enjoy the night," Rachel grinned, throwing her the fake ID. Adley caught it, relenting her smile so that Rachel couldn't tell how happy she was. "Some shots for the ladies," a man said, walking behind the two of them at the bar. "Oh, that's all right. I'm good with my margarita," Adley says in a kind manner. "Excuse her, she's no fun. We would love some shots," Rachel piped up. Adley rolled her eyes, trying to be good, but Rachel was a hard person to say no to. The night was off after that. Shots, drinks, dancing, more shots. Stumbling back from the bathroom. Adley could barely make out the time on the clock with her buzzed eyes. 11:28. "Oh no, I have to go, Rach. I told my parents I would be home by midnight," she says frantically, grabbing her purse. "Ads, come on, things are just getting good," Rachel managed to slur out. "Make sure you get home safe, okay, Rach?" Adley said in her motherly voice, knowing Rachel was a free spirit, always doing her thing. She didn't bother to try to get her to leave. Yeah, I will," Rach let out as they turned away, heading back to the dance floor. Adley made her way to the door, hitting the button on her key because she forgot where she parked. Hopping in the driver's seat, she turned the key and looked out, knowing she shouldn't have been driving. She decided to give it a go, fearing the wrath of her parents would be worse than any outcome. The yellow line was looking blurry at times, but she made it back to her hometown safely. Suddenly, blue lights kicked on behind her. Her heart sank. "This is going to ruin my life," she thought. As the officer approached, she recognized the face. It was Mr. Bachman, who had been the sheriff in town for over 20 years. Maybe this is a good thing. Maybe he'll just let me go, Adley thought. She rolled down her window, waving her hand to seem friendly. "Miss Adley, what a surprise to see you out this late. It must be past your curfew," he said, half joking. "It is my 18th birthday, and I was out with friends. I guess I just lost track of time," she said softly. "Well, happy birthday, Adley. Do you know why I pulled you over?" he said with a sternness in his voice. "No, I don't. I mean, I may have been going a few miles over the speed limit, and I'm sorry if I was," Adley said, trying to get him to sympathize with her. "Well, yes, you were. But you were also swerving over the yellow line. Quite a few times." His voice got more serious. "Oh, I must have been playing music. I'm sorry about that, Mr. Bachman. I am fine, just a little tired." He cuts her off before she can finish. "Step out of the car, please," he demands. As she gets out of the car, she starts to stumble, and Mr. Bachman has to catch her so she doesn't fall into the road. "Adley, I didn't really want to do this, but we have cameras everywhere on these cruisers now. I can't hide anything. Your only chance is to blow into the breathalyzer, and I pray it doesn't read what I think it's going to." He softens his voice this time. The numbers came up were not in her favor. One night out with the girls led to a year without a license for underage drinking and probation on top of that. Her 18th birthday would be the worst birthday yet. Back to present. Adley jogs through the fields of her family farm. She picked up running over the past year to get her mind off things and simply something to do in her sleepy town. She missed out on college, which is why she's still at home because of her lawyer fees from the DUI. So she's working off the money she owes her parents. One night, as she lies in bed scrolling through Instagram, she comes across a group of girl runners and dreams of being able to travel to all the cool races and events like they do. She also comes across the We Run With It fitness page and sees that they have an event coming up. She can't help but notice $100,000 to first place in bold letters at the top of the post. That kind of money is life-changing and would be enough to get her out of this crappy town, at least for a while. The most she's ever ran in a day is 15, and it was only because she got lost on the trail. She woke up the next day determined. As she trained, she dreamed about what life would be like if she won. Character, James. "Hey James, where do you want to go hike today?" his father asked as he was flipping bacon on the Blackstone. "How about Red Rock Canyon?" James suggests. "Sounds good to me," his dad said with excitement. James grew up in Colorado Springs, as his dad used to be in the Air Force. Luckily, James didn't have to live the military brat lifestyle because his dad got out of the military when he was just 5. He then worked for an aeronautical engineering company and invented a new software that made the company a fortune. To say that James's family is well off is an understatement. However, his father still works for that company because of the joy it brings him. For that reason, they're still around the Colorado Springs area. Out of all the beautiful places in Colorado, James wishes they picked a different town to settle in. James just turned 19 and had no clue what he wanted to do for work. His parents were lenient on him, surprisingly, with a military background. He worked at a ski mountain year-round, grooming trails and ski patrol in the winter, then loading up mountain bikes and doing zipline tours in the summer months. His dream was to become a professional runner of some sort. He was top of his cross-country team in high school, but with no interest in college. That is where it ended. He had a love for the trails. In fact, he won the local 50K Ultra last fall in the nearby town. With ultra marathons becoming more popular, he started to devote his free time to training for the long trail events. Being at 8,000 feet elevation and logging all these hours each week would separate him from the competition. He thought that's how he would make his money in life. "Well, yeah, of course you think you're going to make money running," James' friend Kyle said. "You never had to worry about money in life like the rest of us. You'll end up having to get a real job someday, especially when Daddy stops giving you money," Kyle finishes with a chuckle. "I am working hard at becoming a good runner, and it isn't as easy as you think, Kyle," James snaps back, justifying his lifestyle. "Yeah, all right, whatever you say, man," Kyle ends with as he steps up in line at the local coffee shop. James didn't want to show it, but comments like those angered him. They all thought he was crazy for thinking he could somehow make money running. No one believed in him. The mountains spoke to him. They were the only place where he feels completely at peace with himself. His mind stops racing, he can be present. One foot in front of the other. That's it. After a day spent out hiking and rock climbing with his dad, he opened up Instagram when he got to his phone. He noticed a message from Kyle. Probably another stupid meme, he thought to himself. To his surprise, it wasn't. "We Run With It Ultra. 100 miles, $100,000 to first place," the post read. James immediately got excited, totally dismissing Kyle's comment underneath it that read, "Maybe if you win this, you can become a professional runner, LOL." To Kyle, it was a joke. However, to James, this was his chance. He entered all his information for the race that night and started coming up with a game plan. He ran 10 miles a day after work. Then on the weekends, he would run 20 miles each day to total 90 miles a week. A perfect amount, he thought. Not too much that he risked overuse, not too little where he wasn't getting enough volume. Character, Marcus. Bang, bang. The sounds of gunshots chattered down the alley. This wasn't an unusual sound to hear on the west side of Chicago. For Marcus, that sound was his driving force for wanting to get out of the city. His parents did what they could for him, but the generational curse was never broken. His dad worked at a gas station and blamed all his financial problems on the government. His mother was a substitute teacher. They did what they thought was their best, but they never even talked about moving away from this area. Marcus was a bright student. He tried hard in school, knowing that if he got good grades, he could flee the city. However, he didn't get any scholarships he needed to get away, so he's currently attending a local community college. When his head wasn't buried in schoolwork, Marcus was out running. Never meant to be someone who ran long distances, it started with running a few miles to escape the noise and the chaos of the neighborhood. Flashback to a few years ago. "Watch me do a wheelie," Marcus's friend Terry said while on his BMX bike. He took the front tire off the ground and started pedaling harder. Seconds go by and it looks like he's going to make it the entire length of the road on one tire. Until suddenly, crash, bang, pop, the bike flies out from underneath him as he falls to the ground. The bike keeps going 10, 20, 30 feet, then crashes into a parked car. Terry gets up slowly, and Marcus sees the grin on his face. "Don't even say that was cool," Marcus says to him. "Oh, come on, that was awesome," Terry says as he lets out a laugh and grabs his bike. This is the kind of stuff that would happen when Terry and Marcus would hang out. He was always doing something reckless, trying to make others laugh. As they collected themselves and started on their bikes, Marcus noticed a car speeding down the road towards them. "Terry, watch out," he yelled as he jumped off the bike and ducked behind the nearest car. The next thing Marcus heard was gunshots. People started screaming from the front porch. Marcus gently lifts his head, watching the men from the front porch open fire back at the car driving. When the buzzing of the bullets and frantic sounds dulled away, Marcus called out, "Terry, you alright? Terry, are you there?" No response. Marcus stared down toward his bike and then noticed a pool of blood in between the cars. "Terry, are you alright? Terry, come on, answer me." He's crying as he slaps him in the face to wake him up. "Call 911. Please, someone, call 911. He lay there with his best friend bleeding out. There wasn't much the paramedics could do for Terry by the time they arrived. Marcus had just lost his best friend. Present day. His feet hit the sand on the small shore of Lake Michigan on the east side of Chicago. It was 7 miles from where he lived, but when he looked out on the lake, he felt like he could breathe. It was his place to envision the future. As he turned towards the Ferris wheel on the Navy dockyard, he saw an advertisement on the billboard. "We Run With It Ultra Race. 100 miles, $100,000 the first place." Marcus grabbed his phone to look up the details. Noticing the mountains of California, he instantly was turned off. "I do have enough money to pay for gas and a hotel for the weekend, but what business do I have running 100 miles, especially in a mountainous terrain? The farthest I've ever gone is the Chicago Marathon, and that is on flat pavement," he says to himself as he tries to talk himself out of signing up. Suddenly, something came over him. As he looked back at the city, he thought, why the heck not? This was his chance to escape, to do something different. So he entered his information while he was sitting on the park bench, staring out at the endless lake. Character, Austin. "Grab me a bottle of Jim Beam on your way back in," Austin's dad muttered out. It was a Sunday afternoon in Orlando, hot, humid, and with a thunderstorm likely to pass through at any minute now. Austin always stopped by his father's house after his long Sunday morning run to make sure he had food for the week and that his trailer wasn't leaking. Since Austin's mother passed away 5 years ago, his dad lost all hope. He completely gave up. He lost their house, he lost his job, and now he's living in a trailer collecting welfare checks. He promised his mom he would look after his dad when she lay on her deathbed. He does a good job trying to help his dad now, but that wasn't always the case. Flashback 4.5 years ago. 6 months after his mother passed away, Austin caught himself using drugs to dull the pain. His mother was his favorite person in the world, and he was devastated. The only thing that helped the pain was a Percocet that his friend had stolen from his parents. Before Austin knew it, the pills weren't strong enough. Day after day, he was a walking zombie until... Whoa. A blast of Narcan brought him back to life as an off-duty cop saw him passed out on a park bench. When he came to, he could see the needle next to him on the ground. "Where the hell am I?" Austin slurred out. "Oh, thank God you came to," the stranger said, continuing. "You were staring out at Lake Apocta in Winter Garden," he pointed out. "How the hell did I get here?" Austin said aloud, but really to himself. "I can't tell you that, kid, but what I can say is, if you don't clean up and cut this shit out, you may not be so lucky next time," the man says in a fathering way. Those were the last words he heard from the man who saved his life. Of course, the ambulance showed up. The off-duty cop wasn't going to let him go. His choices were to get in the ambulance and get treatment, or keep doing whatever the hell it was he was doing. From that day on, the flip switch in Austin's brain. It wasn't as though he was happy and healthy right away, but he felt like he had been given a second chance. The therapy sessions at the treatment facility helped him discover the reasons for his self-sabotaging behavior. His mother was his rock. She kept him grounded. He relied on her to help when times were tough. Now that she was gone, the weight of life felt unbearable, and that's what led him to his drug problem. It didn't miraculously get better overnight. He spent months in rehab. Then when he got out, he moved back in with his dad, which didn't help much because he was using whiskey to deal with his pain. Austin tried talking to him, but he didn't want to hear it. "All of a sudden, you're a therapist now?" his dad would yell at him. Austin got himself a little apartment after some time and joined the plumbers union. With steady work, he could make a decent living. However, taking care of his dad didn't allow him to save much. He joined the Run Club years ago to be surrounded by a healthy community. He completed the Orlando Half Marathon last year, in which he did well for someone who was never a runner. It was also comical to him that the same park bench he almost died on, he now jogs by. Running isn't an escape anymore. It is more like meditation and movement. The feeling after a long run is one that nothing else can bring him. One Friday night at the Run Club, he overheard some people talking about the race, and it seemed like a hot topic. "Yeah, it's the WeRunWithIt Ultra, 100-mile race, 100 grand first place, best sponsorship deal in the States," one of the runners said with excitement. 100 miles seemed crazy for one race. Austin had to look up the details later that day as he couldn't get it off his mind. He opened up Instagram and started scrolling through. $100,000 is a lot of money. Plus a sponsorship deal? Get paid to be a runner? Why the heck not? He said to himself. If I can change my life the way I did, then I can do anything I put my mind to. Plus, that would get me out of this tiny apartment, and maybe I'd be able to get my dad out of that trailer. He opened the application, filled it out, then hit submit. For the next few months, he would train hard. Part 2. The Arrivals. With the WeRunWithIt Ultra now 2 weeks away, Marcus managed to save up some money so he could venture out early. He has a 20-hour ride to Lake Tahoe. He planned so that he'd arrive at midnight after driving straight through. He got to the hotel right on schedule. The beach retreat and lodge sign was glowing in the darkness of the night. He walked around back at first to check the place out, and he was curious as to what the music and voices were coming from. To his surprise, there was a tiki bar about 50 feet from the water. There was a band playing country music. The vibes were... This is where he's going to end up for a fun night after he was $100,000 richer, he thought with a smile. He spent the next few days hitting trails. He noticed he was short of breath the first 2 days from the altitude, so he was glad he made the trip out early to give him time to adjust. As he took in the chill air of the now northern California nights, he couldn't help but reflect. It was easier to think out in the mountains, with the animals in the lake water being the only noise. He He wondered what Terry would have thought of all this. They never got the chance to talk about leaving Chicago, but they were inseparable, so he most likely would have been right here with them. Marcus looked up at the stormy night and thought, "Thanks for guiding me, buddy. I know you're looking down over me." Next to arrive was Austin. Getting off the plane in Reno, Nevada, he headed to the Uber spot, seeing how he was only 24 years old. Still could not rent a car. Such a stupid thing, you have to be 25, he thought to himself. 30 minutes into the ride, they hit the north side of Lake Tahoe. His jaw dropped in amazement. The lake was crystal clear and absolutely gorgeous, with all the towering mountains around. He'd never been out of Florida, so this was surreal to him. He'd never seen such beautiful scenery. No alligators in this lake to worry about either, he chuckled to himself. This could be a place worth moving to. It excited him to think of all the possibilities of what he could do with his life. After some time, the car pulled into the hotel he was staying at. And still having plenty of daylight, he checked in quick and dropped his bags off at the room. He ventured out on some trails nearby. Starting off walking, he gradually picked up his pace to dust off his legs after a day of travel. Once he reached the peak, he stopped. He didn't know nature could be this beautiful. Overlooking the lake, with no noise from the city in his ears, he looked up and said, "Mom, please make this trip out here mean something." Back in Ohio. "I'll see you in a week. Don't worry, I'll be Adley hugged her father goodbye as she left for the airport. "Make me proud. I know how much this means to you," he said to her. Adley was nervous. She had never left her small farm town. As the plane took off and banked west, she looked down at all the cornfields. As much as she wanted to escape that little town, she had all sorts of feelings about leaving her family for the first time. After about an hour, she settled in and dozed off for the rest of the flight. Screech! Bang, bang! The sound of the plane touchdown woke her up. She looked out the window, seeing the city of Reno surrounding her. "I hope the views get better than this," she thought to herself. Grabbing her luggage, she headed to the cab that her dad booked for her to make sure she got to the hotel safely. She was thankful to have a caring man in her life, a trait she hoped her future husband would have. As the cab rounded the north side of the lake, it made a left onto the Tahoe Tavern properties. She was speechless at the size of the landscape. It was slightly overwhelming for her. Coming from a place where the biggest point was a 100-foot hilltop, these mountains seemed endless. She checked in and brought her luggage to the room. Dropping on the floor as soon as the door closed, she hopped onto the bed to compress for a minute. As she rolled onto her side, she saw the pristine lake staring back at her through the window. She lifted herself back onto her feet and ventured out to the water. It was 70 degrees out, not too warm, but she figured it looked too nice not to dip her feet in the water. As her toes submerged, she let out a yelp. The lake water was 55 degrees. More like one huge ice bath, she giggled to herself. Staring out at what felt like a new world to her, she closed her eyes and envisioned the endless possibilities life could bring her if she were to win this race. Back in Colorado. "Go give it hell out there, James," his father yelled as he was leaving the house and making his way to the airport. "Thanks, Dad. I'm coming home a winner," he shouts back with confidence. His flight went smooth, and although he took in the towering views on his ride to the hotel, the size of the mountains weren't new. Growing up in Colorado and getting all his training in at altitude made him sure the race would go his way. The car pulled onto Tahoe Tavern properties. James grabbed his stuff and headed for the front desk. As he was checking in, he couldn't help but notice a breathtaking figure by the beach. Her blonde hair flowed gently in the wind. Her slightly tanned legs were exposed to the sand beneath her feet. "Sir, here is your room key." The receptionist breaks his obvious stare towards the pretty girl on the beach. He hurried to the room, threw his things down, and headed out for the Baywatch girl on the lake. Sure is a beautiful blue color, James piped up as he approaches the girl. Slightly startled, Adley turns around. Yes, I've never seen anything like it. Well, I haven't either. And I was talking about your eyes, not the lake, James threw out there, in a flirty tone. Back in Southern California. I'll see you in a couple weeks, Carlos shouts to his parents as he escapes quickly from the house. Yeah, what are you doing anyway? Going for a run or something? His dad shouts out, not removing his eyes from the TV. You know, I haven't taken a week off in my life, and here you are going on an adventure run. Damn kids these days. Must be nice, he finishes off with. Carlos didn't expect much else from his father, so he shook it off and continued out the door. He was excited to get away. He'd worked long hours leading up and saved some money so he could afford the time off. He made his way up the California coast. With the alluring sunset to the west out his driver window, he felt like he had made the right choice. Nothing changes if nothing changes, he said to himself. The next day, Carlos pulled up to his Airbnb in the town of Truckee. He wasn't one for hotels, and plus, it was less expensive to get a place a little ways away from the lake. In the distance, he could hear dirt bikes whizzing around in the forest. This is my kind of place, he reassured himself. He did have some extra money to spare and he worked hard for it, so he decided to rent a dirt bike that day. The rocky terrain was different from the sandy trails he was used to back home. As he whipped the bike around, dodging trees, maneuvering around rocks, he suddenly cut his foot on a stump and got launched off the bike. Luckily, the shoulder pads and helmet prevented any damage to his upper body. He shook it off and went to stand up when excruciating pain shot through his ankle. He took his boot off and could see some swelling. Oh no, what was I thinking this close to the race? Part 3, closing in on race day. Back at the beach retreat in the lodge, Marcus was out for his morning run, keeping his legs ready for race day. Hey man, I couldn't help but notice you've been getting runs in every day. Are you here for the competition? A man asked, jogging up next to him. Yeah, I am. Assuming you are too, Marcus replied. Got that right. My name's Austin. Nice to meet you, man. He introduces himself. Marcus, nice to meet you, bro. Marcus gives into the conversation. The two of them continue to jog, passing through town. You want to hit the trail with me? Marcus asks Austin. Hell yeah, I was planning on hiking it up anyway, Austin replied. They weaved in and out of the trails, hopping over rocks. 1 minute, Marcus would be leading. The next, Austin would pull in front. So what brought you out here? Austin asks as they walk out to check out the view from atop the trail. Well, I mean, $100,000 sounds pretty good, doesn't it? Marcus said while laughing. You got that right, but you know what I mean. Everyone has a reason for going at a distance like this one, Austin keeps at Marcus. It was quiet for a few seconds. Marcus didn't have anyone back home ask him questions like this, so it caught him off guard. Honestly, I've never really talked about it with anyone. I got into running after I lost my best friend. Growing up in a rough area of Chicago like I did, running gave me an outlet. I would run to the other side of the city and take in the lake. Though the city hustle and bustle was happening around me, I felt completely safe and relaxed when my feet were moving beneath me. I guess it started as an escape, a way to get away from whatever was going on. To some degree, it still is, and that's why this race means something to me. I could get away from that life and live the way I want to if I win this thing. Anyways, sorry for the long-winded answer. What brought you out here? Marcus asked. No need to apologize, man, Austin assured him. If there's one thing I learned from rehab, it's that you gotta let shit out every once in a while. Marcus gave him a questioning look, a one Austin had seen many times before. He continued. After I lost my mom, I went downhill for a while. Well, more like straight into the gutter. It started with pills, one thing led to another, and I caught myself waking up on a park bench with a needle next to me. He finished, not proud of himself. Holy crap, man. You look far off from a druggie, Marcus pointed out. Yeah, I cleaned myself up. Figured since I got a second chance at life, I might as well do something with it. I started running to keep busy, trading one addiction for another is what they say. But now it gives me clarity. I work through my problems on my runs. Austin pauses for a moment. Plus, I wouldn't mind that $100,000 either, he says, laughing. Back at Tahoe Tavern Properties. James and Adley hit it off that night. Must have been James' good charm. Hey, look who it is. She even looks pretty at 6 a.m., James comments about Adley as she walks into the dining room for breakfast. Yeah, it's too early for that kind of commentary, Adley said, trying to hide her blushing cheeks. Not a morning person. I'll make note of that for the future, James says with boasting confidence. Adley shook her head and headed to grab some coffee. Well, I'm going to let you enjoy your breakfast in peace. Do you want to go on a run with me in, say, like an hour? James asked, standing up, clearing his plate from the table. Well, sure, I guess we can do that. I'll see you then, Adley said faintly, trying not to show too much interest. As she approaches the beach, she notices a man doing push-ups by the water. Suddenly he jumped up and turned around, and she heard, "Hey, there you are." Realizing it was James, she replies, "Do you always have this much energy?" I like to be constantly moving. Life is too short to sit around, James says, giving his life philosophy. They set out on their run, and of course, James starts with the questioning. So where are you from? What brought you out here, Ads? Ads, she said, but only in her head. That's what her close family and friends call her from back home. Shaking off the cobwebs, she starts. Well, James, I'm from a small town outside Dayton, Ohio. There isn't much to talk about with that subject other than there's one gas station, and oh yeah, everybody goes to the farmer's market on Saturday and church on Sunday. Big doings, she said with a chuckle. I guess I'm out here because if I win this race, I'll be able to get out of that small town, at least for a while. And to become a sponsored athlete and get the experience of travel would be cool for me. Why do you want to get away so bad? James keeps up with the curiosity. It's all I know, and I love my family, but I feel like the world has so much to offer. I want to see it all before I settle down and have a family of my own. Plus, when you make one mistake in a community like that, it seems as if you are judged from that the rest of your life, she says with a sigh. Seems like there's some depth to that statement, James says as his eyes seem to stare through her mid-jog. You really don't stop with the questions, do you? Adley rolls her eyes at him, even though she's impressed with his curiosity. Not a question, simply an observation, James says, half sarcastically. Well, since you are going to let me get away without an explanation, here it is. The day I turned 18, I made a big mistake. I went out with friends and had a little too much to drink. Long story short, I got pulled over on my way home and got a DUI. All my dreams of escaping, going to college, they all went away that night. I got put on probation and had to pay a lot of money for a lawyer. Or, I should say, my parents paid a lot of money for a lawyer, since I didn't have much. I ended up having to stay back and attend community college to keep the costs low while I worked on the farm to pay my parents back. She finishes. One mistake doesn't define you for life, Eds. But I think you know that, James says in a calming voice. Enough about me. What's your story? Why are you here, James? Adley says, changing the subject. Nah. Nothing about me yet. You didn't tell me what got you into running, he asked. Since all my friends left and went to school, I didn't know what to do with my spare time. I started running as a way to get in shape. Also, not gain weight or get fat because I can eat endless amounts of chocolate cake. Not sure how I got to this point with it, but when I'm running, I feel free. It's a way to express myself. James pipes in. I know this might sound weird, but I'm kind of glad you got that DUI. You wouldn't have been here if you hadn't. A pretty girl like you probably would have met some rich city guy at college, and you'd already be traveling the world with him. Adley rolls her eyes, still not fully giving in to James. Do you smooth over every girl like this? She asked with a smirk. Of course not. Just you. James says as he winks from his left eye. Well, answer my question now. What brought you here, James? Adley asked sharply. I enjoy running. I just want to prove to myself what I'm capable of, that is all. He responds diligently. I think there's more to it than that. Adley throws a jab at him. You'll get to find out when we're traveling the world together after I win this race. James keeps up with the flirting. As he lay in bed that night, he pondered Adley's question. He knew why he was there. He wanted to make something of himself. His father was successful. He didn't want to live in the shadows the rest of his life. He wanted to pave his own path. At the Airbnb, Carlos sat up with his leg up on the recliner. Ibuprofen and ice has been his life the past few days. The swelling went down slightly, but he still has some discoloration around his ankle. His mind raced between looking out, knowing that he was going into the race injured, and then the flip side of that, he didn't want to let anything get in his way. He decided he felt good enough to limp to dinner that night, where he ran into a group of people dressed in Hokas and other running shoes. They all looked happy and without a worry in the world. Nothing will stop me from winning this race, he reassured himself while waiting for his food. Part 4. The night before the race. All the competitors had to do a pre-race brief the night before and had to pick up their timing chips. Adley and James arrived together. Few words were said between the two as they got out of the car at the Palisades ski area. This is where the race would start from in the morning. The event was set up like any other professional sporting event. To the left, at the base of the mountain, an entire stage was set up with a live band playing music. Next to that was the waffle cabin hut that served those delicious chocolate-covered waffles. I'm definitely getting in one of those tonight, James pointed at the waffle cabin. Let me guess, part of your carb loading for tomorrow, she said, chuckling. As excited James was for the race, his mind couldn't help but wander when he thought of Adley. In the short time they spent together, he got to know her well. Of course, he wasn't going to say anything to her that night, but he hoped this wouldn't be the end of whatever it was they had going on. They made their way back to the check-in table to get their packets. Adley's face said it all. She was smiling, not a little. She was glowing. Everything she went to get here, it all held no weight over her. She was ready to give it all she had. You guys ready for this or what? They heard coming from a man behind them. I mean, hell yeah, we signed up. Ready to leave it all out there, James replied to him. Good luck out on the course. Ain't nothing to it but to do it. I am Austin, by the way. I'll see you guys bright and early. Thanks, man. Good luck to you as well, James replied. Can you believe this event? Austin says, leaning over to Marcus. This is crazy, man. Can't believe it is happening and is finally here. I'm excited to get started and let it rip, Marcus says, taking it all in. Damn, this is wild. Marcus and Austin heard a voice full of excitement coming up next to them at gear check. Sorry, did I say that out loud? The man said, laughing while apologizing. Don't be sorry, bro. I've never seen anything like this set up. When you see ultra marathons, it's normally people with a few pop-up tents, Austin replied. I'm Carlos, by the way. He introduced himself, stepping into the conversation. I'm Austin. This is my buddy Marcus, he replies to Carlos. You guys come here together? No, we actually just met here this week. We connected getting some trail runs in. I think I can call you my buddy now, right, Marcus? Austin asked Marcus, but really implying. Yeah, you could say that. I guess you're all right, Marcus says, throwing a dig at Austin. What's up with the taped up ankle? Austin asked Carlos, pointing down on his foot. Oh, slight sprain, I think. It's all good. The tape is to keep it tight in case I roll it out on the race. Carlos replies, downplaying his injury. Well, be safe out there, man. Good luck tomorrow, Austin leaves off with as he's called up to gear check. The night felt like a celebration of some sort. The band, the food, the good vibes. It allowed the athletes to take a deep breath and relax a little, taking their mind off the pain they were about to endure over the weekend. Part 5. Race day. The morning was brisk. You could see the condensation coming from the athletes' breathing. At 4:30 a.m., the energy was different from the night before. The excitement was still present. However, the nerves were keeping everyone quiet. Half an hour until the race kicked off. James made his way over to Adley, gave her a quick hug, sensing the tightness in her. She reciprocated, but stayed silent, just taking in the support. Austin and Marcus were warming up on the outside of the crowd, trying to stay loose, especially with how cold it was. On the other side of the pack, Carlos was doing as little as possible, preserving all his energy and as his body could, and praying his ankle would hold up. As the clock above the start line hit the 15-minute mark, a voice came over the speakers. "Is everyone ready to race?" the announcer called out, trying to get the athletes pumped up. Barely any response. "Come on, you didn't come all this way to hide your excitement. Let me ask again, is everyone ready to race?" A small roar came from the crowd this time. "Not the level I wanted, but I guess I'll take it at 4:45 in the morning," he continued. As part of the We Run With It race series, we would like to thank you all for coming. We're excited for this weekend and to have athletes from all over the country. I would like to ask everyone to bow their heads for the We Run With It Ultra prayer. Everyone went silent. God, we ask you to keep our athletes from serious injuries this weekend, but also ask you to let them endure the physical and mental pain that comes with these events. Let them give each other energy as the race goes on, and most importantly, let these athletes inspire others through their actions to get out and move. Amen. He finished. You could hear a pin drop in the crowd now. Chills ran down the athletes' spines with that message that was just delivered. This race is bigger than them. All the hard work and dedication it took them to get here, to this point, is now in the rearview mirror. It's go time. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. They are off, the announcer shouted as the clock wound down. From the spectator's point of view, the only thing you could see was a stream of headlamps bouncing up and down, as if hundreds of fireflies were released from a jar all at once. Taking off from the Palisade skier, they headed towards Granite Chief Peak, which sits at 9,000 feet of elevation. Sunrise wasn't for another 2 hours, so the almost 3,000-foot climb would be in the darkness. The headlamps gave them a 10-foot view to rely on, and use that to maneuver their way up. Loose rock and sandy terrain didn't make for the quickest ascent. 1 foot in front of the other, is what Carlos says to himself. He was being cautious in the darkness. No need to come off too strong and risk tweaking the ankle from one bad step. The one benefit of running in the dark is he felt like he had blinders on. Not pay attention to anyone around him or having to see the daunting climb that lay ahead of him. Power hiking up the steep areas, his ankle seemed to be holding up all right so far. "You want to stay together through the first stretch? Then when daylight hits, we can let it rip," Marcus says, turning his headlamp towards Austin. "Yeah, man, as long as you keep your head forward, stop blinding me with that light," Austin replied with sarcasm. The rest of the morning was silent between the two. Any talking would be wasted energy. "You can go ahead of me. You don't have to stick with me," Adley says to James in her sweet voice. "I'm good for now. I normally come off too hot in races anyway, so this is a good way to pace myself," James replied. "Oh, so you're calling me slow," Adley says in her sweet tone that turned sassy. "No, of course not. I'm saying you're a great pacer," James says, trying to save face. James led the way most of the morning, pointing out any rocks and stumps that were sticking up. Sunrise started to shine its orange glow on the peak of the mountain. A couple hours in, morale still high between all the athletes. They would now have 11 hours of daylight to get the bulk of the race done before the darkness took over again. James, who was used to the mountainous terrain, started to tighten up in his right calf slightly, and it was noticeably slowing him up. Adley looked back, seeing how he was 10 yards behind her, and gave him a grin, then put up a peace sign. Although he was in pain, he couldn't help but smile. "Go get it, chickie," he yelled up. Marcus and Austin were staying strong. Hour for hour, they continue to leapfrog each other, not letting one get too far ahead. "Hey, how's the ankle holding up?" Marcus says as he notices Carlos meeting them stride for stride. "Not too bad. Can't complain at all. Happy as daylight now, and I can see where the hell I'm stepping," Carlos says. "Yeah, aren't we all?" Austin piped in. The day continued with the sun shining down on all the athletes. Austin, Marcus, and Carlos were near the front of the pack. Only 5 people lie ahead of them. Adley was leading the group just out of sight from them, and James was towards the back of that group. They all leaped through the stream at mile 25, soaking their feet. And then at mile 37, they hit the first big aid station. Changing their socks out for dry ones from their packs, some athletes sat for a few minutes to fuel up, others hit in the bathroom quick and continuing on. Coming out of the aid station, Austin, Marcus, and Carlos were in the top 5. Only 2 athletes lay ahead of them. Adley decided to forego the sock change and bathroom break to keep chugging along. She felt great. James took a minute to grab his massage gun from his bag and started to loosen up his calf. After taking in some electrolytes and working out his tightness, he started off for the trail, feeling a lot better. He picked up the pace, knowing that he set himself back. In the front group, Carlos, Marcus, and Austin took over the lead 1, 2, and 3 at mile 60, crossing through the switchbacks, barely touching their feet to the ground on downhills as they gained a solid lead on the 2 runners that were ahead of them for more than half the race. Adley's decision to forego the first aid station seemed to backfire. As she took her shoes off at aid station mile 63, she was horrified at what she saw. Her feet were bleeding. One of her toenails was coming off. She went over to the medical tent and got patched up the best she could. With bandages on her feet and a fresh pair of socks, laced up her shoes and took off. Missing Adley by a minute, James made up his ground and was feeling stronger than he had all day. He didn't waste much time at this aid station, throwing some endurance bars in his bag, and a quick piss was up. The 3 in the lead didn't stop at aid station mile 63, as they filled their packs to the max on the previous one. And then nighttime fell upon them as the leaders hit mile 70. "If all goes well, only 6 hours left," Austin relayed out to the other 2. "Stay strong, fellas. Just keep grinding," Marcus called out. Keep grinding is what they did. Nothing much changed in the next 25 miles for the front pack. As they approached mile 95, they had a 4-mile descent back into the base of the mountain, then a 1-mile flat section of asphalt to finish. At this point, they were a half hour in front of the nearest competitors. Cruising through the rocky terrain with their headlamps steering the way, Marcus suddenly called out, "Heads up, huge stump," as he leaped through the air. With Carlos directly behind him, the warning came too late. His foot struck the stump at an angle and sent him toppling down the hill. "Holy crap, are you alright?" Austin called out as he broke his stride and approached him. It's my ankle, you gotta be kidding me. I made it all this way," Carlos says in disappointment. "I have an instant ice pack in my bag," Austin says, ripping it out and taping it around his ankle. "Thanks, man. Listen, I appreciate you guys helping, but keep going. You're about to win this race. Don't let me stop you," Carlos said. "Nah, man. As much as I want to win, this isn't what these races are all about." Austin hits him over the shoulder with his hand. "Come on, get up. Let's finish this thing," he says, lending his hand out. "This is going to be a long 4 miles, fellas," Carlos says, trying not to wince from the pain. "Yeah, well, good thing we already smashed through 96 miles. We can do anything for another 4. Slowly making their way down, Marcus kept looking back to see if anyone was closing in on them. He could see a couple headlights in the distance, but couldn't gauge how far out they were. "I have to walk it out for a second," Carlos says as they approach mile 99, only having a stretch of asphalt left. A minute goes by, them walking, and then Carlos regained the strength to slowly jog. "Here comes the first of the athletes," the announcer says. A few seconds. "And look at this! 2 more just appeared from the trail and are starting to close the gap. We are in for a tight finish." Without hesitation, Austin and Marcus threw their arms around Carlos and started sprinting towards the finish line. With Carlos hopping on one foot, the three of them break the tape at the same time as they all fall across the line. What a remarkable finish by these three. Wow, what perseverance, the announcer shouts, and the crowd starts cheering. Back at mile 88, James has found his stride and is flying through the downhill when he sees a light on the side of the trail. Hey, are you alright? He calls out and shines his light over. Oh, Adley, it's you. What's wrong? Are you alright? He asks worriedly. I don't think I can go any further, she lets out as she points down to her feet. Let me take a look, James says as he takes a knee. Her feet weren't just bleeding now. There was some pus coming from her toenails, and they were almost double the size they normally are. Well, I'm not going to lie, that doesn't look good, James says, trying to light up the situation. If I cut down the trail here, I can get to the main medical tent quickly. They should be able to get a UTV up here and drive you out. James, you're almost done with the race. Don't ruin it because of me, Adley says. Ads, you're more important than finishing some race. I do have to ask you a question, though, before I take off, James continues. If I get you help, will you let me take you away from that small town of yours for a few weeks at least? You know, a couple of dates in a cool place of your choice, James finishes with a grin. You really are something else, Adley says, shaking her head but not hiding her smile. Yes, of course I will. Let these feet heal up first so we can actually do something, she says, letting out the frustration from the pain and embracing James' flirtatiousness simultaneously. Deal, James replies as he stands up. Now get out here and finish saving me, Adley sarcastically says. Yes, ma'am, James shouts out as he's already back up and on the move. Well, I can say from all my years being a race director, I've never seen a finish like this. I must be honest, we were only going to give away one sponsorship deal at the end of this, Kevin says, the race director for WeRunWithIt Fitness. The three guys looked at each other and shrugged. We get it. It is alright if you have to pick one of us, Austin piped up. Yeah, well, we aren't going to do that, he says in a somber voice. All three of you are getting the $100,000, and all three are getting the sponsorship deal. That is what We Run With It is all about. Great work today, gentlemen. This is how you go about life. Welcome to the We Run With It family. The three of them hugged it out, shocked at the great news they just received. Hell freaking yes, Austin says, looking at the other two with a huge smile. The next night. Hey, it's you two. Cool to see you again. Marcus welcomes James and Adley to the tiki bar as he promised himself he would celebrate at it. What's up, everyone? How the winners doing? James said, reaching out and giving them a pat on the back. Well, I am enjoying a beer, Marcus puts up with his mug. These two are doing well with their Diet Cokes. He laughs as he looks over at Austin and Carlos. You know, it used to bother me when people would make fun of me for not drinking. But I don't think there's much you can say to get to me today, Austin says, holding up his winner's medal. Speaking of that, what are you guys going to do with the money? Adley pipes in. I am sticking to the plan. Buy a house that has a garage and room for my landscaping equipment. Start my own business, Carlos says with pride. That's awesome. Good for you, man, James butts in. How about you, Marcus? Oh, man. I'm going to pay my parents' bills for the next few months, send them on a vacation. Then I'm going to pack up my stuff and enjoy the sponsorship deal. Just see where it takes me, I guess, Marcus says. Good for you, man. That is kind for you to take care of your parents. Also, enjoy the travel. You deserve it, Adley says in her calming voice. All right, Austin, you're up. What is your plan? James asks. Similar to Marcus, I'm going to get my dad out of the crappy trailer he is in now. Get him something decent he can stay in while I'm away. Because I'm going to enjoy the sponsorship deal and just have fun on the road for a year. Austin pauses, then looks at James and Adley. What about you two? I know you didn't win the money, but what's next? Well, I came here to win a race, not find my soulmate, James says as he's looking at Adley. However, I think I can mix running and whatever it is we have going on here. We were talking last night with Adley's sweet farm stand skills and my mountain bike and snowboard knowledge, we're going to start a little shop here in town. We both want to get away from our hometown, so we figured we'd take a small risk and see what happens, James finishes. Love to hear that. I think you guys will crush it, Carlos says. I'll make sure one of the stops on our sponsorship tour will be back here. Support local business. Maybe get them to use your place for the video shoot, Austin throws out. We would appreciate that, Adley says. That would be great, James says with excitement. Enjoy the wild ride, guys, you are about to go on. And don't forget, keep running with it.